Hi, in this video tutorial, we'll be looking at different ways of creating countdown timers to use in VDMX. For the first one, we're going to look at motion, where I created a very simple countdown timer that is, of course, pre-rendered. So when we trigger it, it gives us a countdown, but it doesn't exactly time out to our system clock. And this is a pretty corny little thing that I made very quickly, but it'll give you some of the ideas that you can do in motion. And if you're creating something from scratch in motion, you can go to the library section, and under generators, you'll see there's a section called numbers, and just gives you a little number generator here. And if you want to stylize that, you've got some text styles, and then there's a section called behaviors, and that gives you all kinds of different things for fading in and out in different styles. When you export from motion, the only trick there is you just go to export movie, and from here, since you can only do a few codecs, you'll probably want to use the ProRes 444 option so you get the alpha channels. And then from there, it'll ask you where you want to export it to. I've already created this movie as an export. If you want to change this into HAP alpha because you might want to save on some disk space from a ProRes movie, you can, of course, use QuickTime Player 7. And from there, that opened up on my other monitor. So let's just drag that over. There we go. And when you export from here, you would just go under options and then under settings, choose HAP alpha or HAP Q alpha if you want the higher quality version. And then you can, of course, also specify what export resolution you want to go to if you want to change it to a different size. And then you would export it from here with a different name. And I've already done that, and we'll include that, but here's our New Year's Eve countdown in HAP alpha. So the advantage of using HAP or HAP alpha is it'll be lower disk usage in this case compared to ProRes, and you'll get to keep the alpha channels, and it's also much lower CPU usage typically. The next thing we'll look at after QuickTime Player is the ISF editor. So if you watched the previous tutorial, you saw that we had a few different examples of how you can make shaders that are clock-based. So to begin, I'm going to look at this one, our digital clock, so I'll just drag that in there. And here's our code for how the digital clock works. So up at the top, there's some code that I actually borrowed from somebody else, the Omnidome people, and you can see it says there a little note, and kind of the most action of it happens down here. So in particular, with the latest update to ISF, one of the things we added was this date variable, which gives it to you the year, the month, the day, and the time of day within seconds. And then this little blob of code here, for you to look at it, basically does the mod math needed that converts the seconds of the day into hours, minutes, and seconds. And then it has this little extra exception in here for dealing with 24 hours if you're using a particular clock mode. So the clock modes that are available are to use time, which gives you the date. There's also the countdown mode, which just takes the number of seconds in a day and subtracts so that you're counting down. And then it also has a counter mode, which counts in seconds the amount of time since this composition started. There's also an option in here for blinking and adjusting the offset and switching between a 24-hour clock view and a 12-hour clock. Oh, I actually want to maybe change our time. So when you're working with this, you may want to actually open up system preferences to date and time so that you can try a few different dates and times out. So here we go. Now I've jumped to just before midnight, and we can see our time is either 11:45 or 23:45, depending on whether you're using the 24-hour clock. And if we switch to the countdown mode, we have 14 minutes until midnight. So this is, again, a really nice example composition if you just want to see exactly how the date variable works for getting the time out. Another option you may want to go with is the auto countdown, which uses the number of seconds since this started. So here we go. It's using the time variable, and otherwise it's just passing in the display time. And this one you can see has a strobe on 0 option. So if I drop this down to starting at 10 seconds, here let's reload that composition, started at 10. And you'll see that when the strobe on 0 happens, you get this little edge condition here, which strobes it based off of what frame number it is. And you can make an adjustable frame rate for that if you want to. This one also gives you an adjustable font size and a few other bells and whistles like changing the color. Last, we've got this New Year's Eve countdown one. And again, just like the others, it has this code at the top that I borrowed for just doing the drawing of the actual digits. In this one, we have a 2-pass shader where the first pass uses the event. So you can see that instead of using bool on-offs, these are event-based buttons. So you can see they say here event in the WYSIWYG editor. And that's the code here in this first part of the shader. And basically, if you were to look at the first pass of the shader, pass index 1, it's adjusting. Oh, well, I guess it's completely transparent, so you can't really see it. But what it's doing there is adjusting. Let's make this maximum there. Now we can probably see it. Yeah, there we go. So on the first pass, we're just rendering a 1 pixel by 1 pixel section. So you can see it says 1 pixel by 1 pixel. And the opacity of that 1 pixel by 1 pixel is being used to adjust the time of that offset. So it's basically being used as a single variable that just stores the current time. And when those buttons for events are true, it just increments or decrements that. And when you hit the reset one, it just resets it to the initial value that you've specified there. Then in the second pass, it just uses that display time variable. So here we say we get image pixel current time from that current time variable that we've been storing, and we get our timer. So unlike the digital auto timer one, I don't have a strobe on 0 one, so that could be an exercise. You can add something that happens when this timer gets all the way down to 0. So I hope you enjoyed watching this kind of very basic introduction to how these compositions work, and I hope you enjoy either using them or customizing them to your own needs. Thanks for watching.